Hi everyone, welcome to India's second Metabolic Health Conference. My name is Mandar Gadre. I am a metabolic health consultant and a very proud member of DLife.in. DLife is India's oldest, biggest, and the only award-winning low-carb platform. Shashikant Iyengar and Anup Singh have brought to you this historic and scientific feast from India titled Metabolic Therapies. And now let's meet our very special guest for this session, Mr. Akmal Al-Bhatti. Akmal is a health coach and he has put his own diabetes into remission by studying nutrition and following first a keto diet for 2.5 years. And then currently he's on the carnivore diet since last 1.5 years. He has a very interesting personal story that we are going to ask him more in detail about. Thank you, Akmal, for joining. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for joining. So let's get into it. So first, I want to ask you, could you please share your background in brief and especially on your health journey? And what was the trigger for you to start taking a deeper look at nutrition?
It all started, I started my journey into learning about health and nutrition in March 2020, immediately after I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes with an HbA1c of 11.7. And my commitment to health intensified further when I was unexpectedly told I had melanoma, a type of skin cancer, which fortunately stopped from spreading. While illness is often viewed as a suffering, I see my diabetes diagnosis as a blessing in disguise. It prompted me to learn about health and diet, a path I might not have explored otherwise. As you have mentioned, for the past 4 years, I've been following a ketogenic diet, 2.5 years being on keto, and since last 1.5 years on a carnivore diet, healing myself with every bite. Being passionate about health optimization, I preach what I learn and practice on myself. I help people in my community with advice related to their health and diet-related issues. So that's a brief intro about me.
Perfect. Thank you. It's quite an inspiring story for all of us, and I'm going to get into some of those details. But I also noticed that in your online persona, you call yourself carb free, right? Carbs free. So how did you first come across this way of eating? Because this is not what is generally told. So can you please develop that contrast for us, for our viewers, that what was the typical advice that you got, and how did you find out about how to eat and start healing yourself?
In mid-2020, while diving into the world of diabetes and keto, I was binge watching different intermittent fasting and keto experts on YouTube. During this period, Shawn Baker showed up as a recommendation. I watched a few videos of him, but hesitated to explore Shawn Baker's content more due to the usual brainwashing about cholesterol, saturated fats, and later on protein being converted to blood glucose. But as time went on, in the same time, I noticed that keto influencers were pushing more and more of greens and not recommending enough red meat. In fact, the quantity of red meat they suggested to eat was very small. Almost every video was focused on veggies, greens, nuts, and seeds, etc. I started to feel uncomfortable with keto, as I felt that somehow vegetarianism is being pushed more and more into keto. Me personally, if any day I had more veggies or greens in my meal and no or less meat, I was not feeling well. For example, hunger pangs would kick in quicker and stronger than otherwise. I started to question the need of plant materials in my diet, and then something clicked in my mind that I'm doing keto and have reduced carbs intake. Most of the fruits are avoided as being non-keto, and I was only consuming berries occasionally. Starchy vegetables are non-keto, and I was consuming above the ground vegetables. And this made me feel good compared when I was on a standard diet. Now, what would happen if I completely eliminate the remaining carbs and plant materials? This time, luckily, 3 different carnivore experts, including Shawn Baker, showed up as a recommendation on YouTube. And then during the last quarter of 2021, I started listening all the videos in their respective playlists, starting from the oldest to the newest. I was listening these videos whenever and wherever I could, while commuting to and from the office, while walking in the evening, while having my meals. This took around 9 months. And then I found some more experts who are a wealth of information on the carnivore diet. So in September 2022, after increasing my meat consumption since a month and feeling significantly better, I made a decision to switch from keto to a carnivore or a zero carb diet. And I have been having red meat and eggs ever since in all my meals and feeling much better than the keto days, even though keto was much better than a standard diet.
Very interesting. One question I have is that these days I notice that there is all kinds of information floating around. So as you mentioned, you have been going to these YouTube videos and some other social media platforms as well. How did you start filtering some of those? Because all kinds of information will come to you, and every author or every speaker speaks quite confidently about their own way, right? So how did you go about filtering that information? Because I think that is going to be interesting to some of our viewers.
Yeah. It started in March 2020, just few days before the lockdowns in the United Arab Emirates. So I was admitted in hospital for 3 days, and throughout those 3 days, I was being administered drips and was discharged after being informed I have type 2 diabetes. On the day of being discharged, my fasting glucose was 252, CRP was 30.76, and HbA1c was 11.7. Additionally, glucose was 3+ in the urine. I was prescribed 1000 mg medication and told that it is for lifelong. And also that dosage will increase and additional medications will be added, including insulin, because of diabetes-related complications will surely arise. This news came as a shock to me. The doctor also conducted tuning fork and joint tests and informed me to come for follow-ups for joint tests every 2 weeks for about 4 sessions to monitor my condition. As I learned more about diabetes later on, I understood that those tests were conducted to assess the extent of diabetes-related complications, with amputation being a potential worst-case scenario. Upon leaving the hospital and with all that in mind, and having no prior knowledge of what is diabetes and its causes, I felt as if I have been left blindfolded in a forest, and I'm searching for a way out. So within the first month, I started noticing that blood glucose levels were linked with carbohydrate intake. So I became extremely strict with my carb consumption by using an app to keep a log of my food.
Okay.
And in this process, I ended up eliminating sugar, grains, beans, starchy vegetables, most of the fruits and factory-made products from my diet. I even lost the urge of tea and coffee and eliminated it. For me, since childhood, I was a meat lover.
Okay.
So I still continued consuming some red meat, although it was lesser in quantities now. But later, a nutritionist advised on completely swapping it for steamed, skinless chicken thighs or breasts. However, instead of swapping all days, I swapped it on some days only. I also was having low-fat yogurt and low-fat milk as advised by the nutritionist due to the known false fear surrounding animal fat. I relied on very few items from the carb exchange list provided, as most of them were carb heavy. So unknowingly, I was following a keto diet. So now when I look at my logs, it was 20 to 30 grams of carbs in a meal in a day. I began to feel better as my body fat decreased and my blood glucose levels gradually normalized. I just wanted to not only avoid getting any additional medications, which I was told I will surely get, but to also get off the single medication I was prescribed. Now here's the interesting part. After a few months, I visited the doctor. He, noticing my rapid weight loss, he asked me if I was following a keto diet and added that it is not safe. I honestly replied that I wasn't aware of what keto was. Upon returning home, I started searching about keto on the internet and realized that my dietary habits aligned with it. So thanks to the doctor for unintentionally introducing me to the world of ketogenic diet. And after 3 months, doctor had to reduce my single medication dosage by half, as HbA1c fell to 6.3.
Okay.
And from 11.7. And after another 3 months, he deprescribed the medication, saying I don't need it any longer. HbA1c was 5.3.
Very nice.
And just one more, how they diagnose diabetes. Like later, I learned about the importance of fasting insulin and fasting C-peptide numbers.
Mm-hmm.
No doctor had checked it earlier, not a
Right.
single doctor. Now with normal HbA1c, I was curious to find my C-peptide and insulin numbers, and I remember having to argue with the doctor to have them checked. He dismissed my request, saying I have a normal HbA1c, hence there is no need for the tests. He further said that many people with HbA1c exceeding 10 were managing their conditions with medication and insulin while enjoying normal life, and that I should stop worrying and start enjoying life, even suggesting I reintroduce rice, bread, sweets, etc. into my diet and not be strict and stubborn. I just could not believe what he just said. I then went to another doctor who initially dismissed the need for further testing, saying that once diabetes develops, insulin and C-peptide levels remain elevated indefinitely due to the genetic nature of diabetes. The normal what they say usually. However, I insisted him to conduct the tests, to which he finally agreed. I was mentally prepared that no matter how high the numbers come, I will at least have some benchmark to track.
True.
The results revealed a C-peptide level of 4.99 in October 2022.
Okay.
Followed by subsequent tests showing declining levels, 2.78 in January 23 and 1.58 in April 23 last year. I then remember the doctor's words that diabetes is genetic. And once you have it, it stays with you. And that fasting insulin and C-peptide numbers will always remain high. I can only imagine what the numbers would have been when I was admitted in hospital in March 2020.
Right. No, this is, I think you have been on a very interesting self-taught journey, I must say, right? Because you have explored the information yourself. You have clearly experimented on yourself and, proven, first of all, to yourself and then to others that you can put it in remission. So I think this gives hope to a lot of people who are listening. Also, if I may ask, what was your fasting insulin level? If you tested it, sort of, is there a contrast that you saw there as well?
As I told you, fasting insulin when I was diagnosed was not tested.
Okay.
So, however, the last 3 tests which were done, I have the C-peptide numbers. If you want, I can pull up the details.
No, just ballpark is okay. But got it. We can come back to that. That's fine. Understood. So I have to ask. So you were maintaining sort of a ketogenic range of carbohydrates, right? About 20 to 30 grams. Yes. So which naturally meant that you were eating a lot of protein and fat, of course, right? And then, as you know, in our subcontinent, there is a lot of fear of eating that protein, right? And we tend to over-rely on carbohydrates, and people are afraid of proteins. So how did you get over that? Because people around you must have asked you, or your, caregivers may have warned you about that.
Ever since childhood, I like meat. I cannot deny that. For me, a meal without meat was incomplete. And whenever my mother cooked a meal void of meat during my childhood, she used to say that today Akmal will say he is not feeling hungry. As that was my excuse for not having a meal void of meat. So for me, the switch from standard diet to keto was an immediate decision one fine day. And then from keto to carnivore again was immediate one fine day. In both instances, yes, I faced some initial challenges, but I was having the willpower to go over it. Like I remember once I was in my office having my eggs, and a lady seeing and saying to me, "Do you know that the weekly consumption of eggs is around 3, and you are eating 10 in the meal?" Right. I just kept quiet. So there is a pushback, yes. But personally, I've noticed that while there's some fear surrounding protein intake in people in Pakistan, but it's not as significant as the over-reliance on carbohydrates, especially grains, which is surely one of the primary culprits for various medical conditions. In the northern and northwestern regions of Pakistan, people still, especially the older generation, still primarily consume red meat cooked in traditional ways in animal fat. In Pakistan, some influencers and nutritional experts spread propaganda against red meat and animal fat, citing various nutritional studies, which obviously are biased and purely executed. Unfortunately, many people tend to believe what these people say, but some return to their usual meat consumption after a few days. It's a common practice here in Pakistan to have meat at least once or twice a week, especially on Fridays. Whether it's beef, mutton, chicken, fish, and dishes like nihari, organs, brain, testicles, liver are also popular. But another thing which we as Muslims, we fail to notice that our religion itself has a very significant emphasis on meat. For instance, during happy occasions, like when a child is born, or something great happened in your family, bringing happiness, etc., our religion instructs us to sacrifice ruminant animals like a goat, sheep, lamb, cow, or camel. On Eid al-Adha, also known as the Big Eid in South Asia, we are told to sacrifice ruminants and divide the meat into 3 more portions. One for ourselves, one for relatives, neighbors, and friends, and one for the poor and the needy. There is no mention of cooking and distributing plant items. So in my personal view, consuming carbohydrates is nothing but a waste of time, money, and resources. Furthermore, it only leads to illness, resulting in additional expenses on medical treatment. It is clearly stated in medical textbooks that humans require 0 g carbohydrates provided that adequate amounts of protein and fats are consumed. If we eliminate carbohydrates from our diet, we will live a healthy life. However, if we keep carbs and remove or keep protein and or fat, our body will only be getting sicker by sicker.
Definitely.
But also many people are not aware that even spices, pepper, etc. contain carbs. For example, turmeric is 72% carbs. Black pepper is 71% carbs. And in South Asia, almost everyone cooks using turmeric and pepper. We have ruined our taste buds so much that having a food without the laundry list of spices, the food is tasteless. So it will take time for the general public to overcome this over-reliance on carbohydrates.
Understood. Well, one thing I'm curious about is that, as you mentioned, you were a meat eater, or rather meat lover.
Yes.
But help us understand. So, had you tracked your carbohydrate consumption levels, before you were diagnosed, or maybe can you estimate for us so that we get an idea? Because you still had to sort of go through the diabetic journey, right?
It was basically a mixed diet, standard diet. My favorite dish used to be a Yemeni dish called mandi. You have the roasted cut of lamb placed on a platter of rice. So it was typical carbs and proteins and fat mix, standard diet.
Understood. So this actually illustrates a good point that, as you know, in the subcontinent, even people who call themselves non-vegetarians, a lot of times they are eating meat, as you mentioned, maybe a couple of times a week, typically, in fact, once a week. That too also in one meal and a few pieces, because it's still not the king of your plate, right? The protein and fat is still not the king of the plate. It's still a lot of carbohydrates. So that's why I was curious about, those levels. Another thing I want to ask you is, you mentioned the right cooking practices, especially the animal fats. So, and I know you also create a lot of interesting videos on cooking, and you spread awareness. So, what are your go-to, cooking oils, or what do you like to use?
During my carnivore journey, I started using tallow, homemade tallow. Then I switched to ghee also for a change. And now recently, since past 1 year, I'm using just chunks of suet, the fat around the kidney of the cow, the fat chunks cut into bite-sized pieces. So I just put it in the frying pan, and the oil comes out, then I put my steak in it.
Perfect. Understood.
And during keto times, I was into coconut oil, MCT oils, and all these things.
Got it. I also have seen sort of your weight transformation photos. So I want to ask you about that as well, because you experienced not just the blood glucose, which I imagine you are tracking, but also you saw differences in how you look. And so, can you please tell us what was the the weight loss journey as well?
Yes, the biggest portion of weight loss happened in the first year.
Okay.
Between March 20 to March 21. And I was like, before being diagnosed, I was around 120 kg.
Oh.
So currently I'm around 80. And during keto, I even reached, someone won't believe it, I reached 53 during keto.
It's very interesting, because here you are saying that you ate a lot of fat and protein, but you lost fat. So it's good for our audience to understand that it's much more a hormonal issue than just a caloric issue.
I'll just add one point here about the fat. Body will keep the fat required. Any excess will be excreted. Hence, you get the loose stool when you're on a carnivore diet. When you have excess fat, it comes out. It doesn't get stored.
Very interesting. So, as you mentioned in the intro, we want to come to your, diagnosis of cancer as well. And then maybe I'm going to just ask the two questions together and then over to you. So, first of all, please help us understand that journey and, what happened and how did you find out about it, as well as what's the relation between sugars or carbs in general and cancer? How do you look at it now?
During a routine visit to the doctor in December 2020, the doctor was not feeling okay with my rapid weight loss. Like, he was unaware I was following a ketogenic diet, because he told me it's not good for health. So he told me he wants to do a physical examination of myself to see if he's able to find any abnormality on my body associated with the rapid weight loss. So upon examination, he found an abnormal dark colored patch with an asymmetrical shape. It was located between my two shoulders, slightly towards the bottom. He asked me whether I was aware of it before, and I said I don't recall noticing anything, as it is not a location which is seen easily or daily. He then suggested me to check with the dermatologist to be sure it is not something abnormal. So I went to the dermatologist, and after examining the patch, she suggested conducting a biopsy to send a sample to the lab for further analysis. When I inquired if it was a cause of concern, she just explained that it didn't resemble a typical mole due to its shape, and that we can only know about it once the lab reports come. So I got the biopsy done in January 21. This was approximately 10 months after being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. A few days after the procedure, I received a call from the dermatologist informing that the lab report is confirming it is melanoma. I inquired further, and she asked me to visit her. And during the meeting with her, she explained that melanoma is a type of skin cancer. It shocked me. She advised me to consult with an oncologist as soon as possible. I was feeling very overwhelmed by the successive health challenges within the past year. I couldn't help but think about my luck, wondering why, unfortunately, I seem to be encountering a new medical condition each year. Like, previous year was diabetes, and now I've got melanoma. I then scheduled an appointment with an oncologist, and the oncologist said that I started developing melanoma, and luckily the cancer cells died where they started and did not spread. I asked the cause of it developing. He said long exposure to sunlight is the likely cause, to which I replied that my job is office related. So, and there is no significant outdoor work here or where I can get exposed to sunshine for long durations.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said that sometimes exposure to sunlight, even for shorter periods of time, can result this developing, especially in brown skinned people like South Asians. To which I replied that the part where it is found is always covered, whether I am in my house or outside.
True.
So I could not get a clear cut answer for it.
Mm.
I then asked him also, like, if it is possible to know, like, approximately when did it start or when did it die off. There's no answer from that. Anyhow, then the oncologist now advised a precautionary measure of conducting a full body PET-CT scan to ensure that it is not somewhere else. For the scan, I was injected with a radioactive material tracer, sugary tracer, normally it is. And thanks to God, the results came back clear. However, as a further precaution, doctor recommended surgically removing the flesh, fat, and skin surrounding the area where the dead cancer cells were located. Around 3 square centimeter area. So I then started to search more about cancer and its causes and cures online and found interviews of people who have cured cancer on ketogenic diet. And then I understood that the reason it did not spread and in fact went away is most probably it had started around the same time when I started my ketogenic diet. So because I had that time strictly removed sugar and carbs from my diet and following intermittent fasting as well, which I actually did for diabetes. And in the end, it turned out to be curing my cancer as well.
Got it. Akmal, sorry, we sort of lost you just for a few seconds. Could you please repeat the last couple of sentences? When you, just to the sugar and the cancer connection, please. Yeah.
Yeah. I then started to search about cancer and its causes and cures online and found interviews of people who had cured cancer on ketogenic diet.
Right.
And then I understood that the reason that it did not spread and in fact went away in the early stages was most probably coincidentally I had actually strictly removed sugar and carbs from my diet and following intermittent fasting, which I actually did for reversal of diabetes.
Right.
So it helped me there.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, this is, I think, first of all, congratulations on putting these conditions in remission. And it's very interesting to know how they are so closely connected. The weight loss, it's a significant weight loss, then diabetes, as well as your personal story on cancer as well. So yeah, very inspiring, and I think it's going to be helpful for our audience. Now I want to sort of come to a macro picture, right? In the subcontinent, as you know, a lot of people say that, okay, I'm sort of using lentils. We view them as, a lot of people view them as source of protein, and they want to sort of mix it with rice, and then they will say, okay, I'm getting all the amino acids. So does it really work for us to get that enough nutrition? How do you look at it?
Before answering that question, is it okay I just go back to the cancer part a little bit?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
I just share some information.
Sure.
First of all, we have to note that one of the contributors to cancer is the consumption of any factory-made cooking oil, like seed oils, vegetable oil, etc. These were originally used as engine or lubrication oil, as we know, and then someone greedy and unethical decided to sell it as edible to make not some, but tons of money. As per experts, these oils stay in the body for 8 to 10 years. And during this period, they are continuously damaging the cells to become dysfunctional. And then the cells become what is a cancer cell. And a cancer cell requires many times more energy to function compared to a normal cell. So consumption of cooking oil and carbs leads to medical conditions showing up. For some, it might be kidney issues, for some blood pressure, for some diabetes, for some heart disease, for some cancer, etc. But all these issues can be cured if we remove the things that cause and feed it. So I see it this way: the oils, along with other factors, will help create the fire, which is cancer, and the sugar is the fuel for the fire to spread. So, and regarding the second part, like for the fuel sources of cancer, they basically have two main sources: glucose and then amino acid, glutamine. So the easiest way for us to make sure that the cancer cells are well fed is having carbs through the mouth. So in theory, we ourselves are happily feeding cancer cells one bite at a time or one sip at a time. So if we just eliminate the carbs and as for the glutamine, the glutamate, the amino acid, it's very frequent. It's abundant in the body. So for those who are in advanced stages of cancer, can use glutamine blockers strategically, along with some supplements like fisetin, etc., and multiple day fast to get the GKI index lower than one or below. It can help a lot. So that I wanted to add there about the cancer part. Now, your second question was about?
So mixing of, so when you do a mixture of lentils and rice and sort of looking at it as a protein source, so what do you think about that?
It's unfortunate that people who have been misled to believe strongly that lentils, beans, chickpeas, or what is known as in South Asia as chana, etc., the go-to staple for health and nutrition. Fats and proteins are a fundamental requirement of the human body. Our body does not know fat and protein. It knows individual amino acids which combine to form protein and individual fatty acids which combine to form fat. However, when considering plant-based sources of protein, it's common for them to be void or deficient in certain amino acids, resulting in an incomplete amino acid profile. Some amino acids act as limiting factors, meaning that if one amino acid is insufficient, a specific metabolic process requiring a certain ratio of that amino acid cannot happen as needed. So what is said is to consume a diverse range of plant-based food items in your daily meal to achieve a well-balanced diet to get all the required amino acids. So we have a platter of what is called a rainbow plate. Then comes the issue to get all the vitamins and minerals. So add in more items to the daily mix of a well-balanced diet. But here, what people fail to notice that under the context of completing the amino acid profile, vitamins, minerals, we are increasing the carbs in the plate. Then there is the issue of amount of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals in the plant items, which as per a report published in USA, is on decline since last 70 years and getting worse. As per the report, there is at least 25 to 50% average reduction in vitamins and minerals in fruits and vegetables so far. Then you have the issue of the effect of anti-nutrients, including fiber, which block the absorption of vitamins, minerals, nutrients by the body from the food we eat. This has been shown scientifically and published. So what we do instead, we increase the portion size. And what we are actually doing, we are increasing the carbs by many folds, just to cover the daily requirement of nutrients. And anyhow, we still cannot get enough of the nutrients from plants, no matter how much we eat. So we are only getting undernourishment, wasting money, and getting sicker and sicker with each morsel and sip.
Excellent point. Also, I noticed that in your way of eating that you have been doing currently, there is no fiber either, right? Virtually no fiber. So, but isn't fiber essential? And, that's what we have been told. So what's your experience on it? And how do you look at the science of it?
On a carnivore diet, due to the absence of anti-nutrients and fiber from plant items, body is effectively absorbing as much of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals as possible. Therefore, there is very less waste generated for excretion. Now, note that I'm against keto, but as I was having lots of fiber on keto, as people normally do, my bowel movements were same as that when on a standard diet. Some days even bad. bulky stool, hard to pass, etc. This was inspired me having too much dietary fat than on a standard diet. But switching to a zero fiber diet, my bowel movements are best since decades. Less frequent bowel movements, easy to pass, less time, meaning saving a lot of time for other things in life. During the initial days of carnivore, it was around 7 to 10 days, but now it is somewhere around once in every 2 to 5 days. Then some people say that fiber softens the stool. However, it has been found that moisture in stool does not vary irrespective of how much fiber and water is consumed. Then a small percentage of, some people say a small percentage of dietary fiber gets fermented in the gut, and this releases gases. And since our gastrointestinal tract is very small compared to a herbivore animal, even a small amount of this gas then causes bloating in humans, which we complain of frequently on a standard diet. Then also, one interesting part here about fiber, during fermentation of fiber by the good bacteria in the gut, a short chain fatty acid is released, which is important for the functioning of the cells or colonocytes that are in our colon. Like these cells are what are lining the walls of the colon. These colonocytes can get exactly what they need in an easier way through ketone bodies on a ketogenic diet, through consumption of animal fat, especially pure butter. So is saturated fat bad for health?
Right. No, thanks for thanks for that explanation as well. So I think that helps us understand the role of fiber. I want to also ask you, in our subcontinent, so just like in India, I was also looking at the numbers of diabetics in Pakistan as well, and unfortunately in both these countries those numbers are increasing. What do you think the primary reason is? Because we have been told, I mean, you were just like you were told it is genetic, but how do you look at it now after your journey?
It's let me say it this way. The primary reason for this is the widespread misinformation spread by medical professionals and nutritional experts. The conventional ones, I mean. Okay. And then religious clerics are also doing their part by misinterpreting the various aspects of diet mentioned in our religion. So to support those false dietary claims by medical professionals. Like doctors and nutritionists don't even understand hypoglycemia is not a signal that it's not a signal that it is time to eat or drink something, but rather what is being consumed is not proper and sustainable for the body. So we as Muslims have a golden chance every year to reset our dietary habits when we drive fast from pre-dawn till sunset for 30 days straight. But what happens is our average daily consumption of carbs increases compared to the remaining 11 months of the year. For example, if a person consumes 2 samosas a week for 11 months, that makes 88 samosas. However, during Ramadan, if we assume if a person consumes a minimum of 2 samosas per day, that is 60 samosas a month. Add to that paratha, roti, rice, pakoda, jalebi, fruit, sharbat, etc. And all this is consumed at least twice a day if no snacking is done at night. All this because we have been brainwashed to believe that these are part of the local or cultural food and are important. And additionally, for us as Muslims, I would say the clerics, the religious clerics, are spreading misinterpretation of the religion from the dietary point of view. For example, they say dates and honey are a must-have commodity in modern times, especially if you have medical conditions, including diabetes, and that it is a cure. Under this excuse, diabetics binge on these items, especially on dates in Ramadan. There's a country which, compared to Pakistan, has a higher population density, no significant natural resources, suffers more frequent and severe natural calamities. percentage of people having diabetes in that country is 78.5% less compared to Pakistan. But if we look at the food in Pakistan, people consume 80% less meat and 83% less eggs compared to that country.
Okay.
Additionally, that country has the largest number of centenarians in the world, and this number has been increasing since past many years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the problem of roti and rice as a way to have the food getting into the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I see it like this, that if there is a need to use something like roti or rice to place food in the mouth, or you require an ingredient to make a food palatable, either the food is not food or is being cooked in a wrong way. Then, but people then say, "Nah, okay, we have these issues, medical issues, but eggs are costly, meat is costly." They have this excuse.
Mm-hmm.
But they fail to notice that, a roti from a bakery or tandoor, a cup of tea, handful of nuts, seeds, any snack can easily be replaced with a single hard-boiled egg and be healthy, nutrient-dense option in the same price. But they don't mind wasting, or consuming 5+ rotis in a meal, or having multiple cups of tea in a day. For them that is okay.
Yeah, very well put. And we also tend to measure how much we ate by the count of the rotis, right? We say that, okay,
Yeah.
I ate 3 rotis or I ate only one, so I ate less. Unfortunately, that's the reality. So yeah, thanks for such an illuminating discussion. We are drawing close to the end of the session.
Yes.
May I request Shashi to join in, please?
Yeah, Anup is also there. Anup, get Anup in.
Hello, yes.
Yeah, Anup is here. Akmal, thank you very much for accepting the invite and sharing your inspirational journey. So, what started as a diabetes recovery or remission journey, in that you also found that you had cancer and you were able to successfully get it under control, or it got control automatically since you are following
Yes.
almost sort of a dietary pattern which is now recommended as a protocol for cancer patients by many top thought leaders like Thomas Seyfried or
Yes.
Nasha Winters. So we had them couple of days, and then today we are going to have one more Dr. Alex talking on cancer. But I think it's a very inspirational story, and that's why we thought we will get you, even though you are not a doctor. But nevertheless, we need individuals who will come and tell us their success stories with this. So and you also gave us some insight about what is happening in your country, where the diabetes prevalence is very high. It is more than 20%, whereas even India is having 11%, but yours is very 26%. Something is seriously wrong with the food, the kind of excess carbohydrate, sugars, and even, let us say, the kind of seed oils you use, which everything really exacerbates everything. So thank you very much. Anup?
Yeah, Mr. Akmal, first of all, congratulations for being healthy again by
Thank you very much.
dumping the industrial diet dressed as standard diet or standard dietary recommendation. I have no hesitation in saying that that diet is crap, right? And we concur on to many points, especially on fiber. You highlighted the fact that fiber, I normally say fiber is not intelligent. If it slows down glucose, rise, it will slow down everything. And you highlighted through numerical data that increase of fiber, it is impeding minerals, vitamins, everything. So fiber
I'm with you about this thing, that I personally believe complex carbs is nothing but a tool for deceiving people.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, carbs in any form, if they are being converted to sugar, body will need same amount of insulin, whether you drink pure glucose or you eat, equivalent amount of tons of vegetables. Thank you again, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks, Akmal.
Thank you, Akmal.